Now welcome to another lightning response video, where this time I've got one question I want to respond to, one that will give my take on one of the most debated things in Star Wars, or at least most debated when it comes to the balance of the Force. And tomorrow I think I will do another Thunderous Ramble or Thor Thunderstorm, where I try to answer a bunch of questions in one long video. But for now, on to this question from Eclipse, who asked, "Hey Thor, with the idea that true balance in Star Wars is the absence of the dark side, I wonder how do the Mortis gods play into that? I mean, you've got the son and the daughter who embody the dark and the light, then you've got the father who's meant to balance them out. I agree with your take on the Force, I'm just unsure with how Mortis fits into this." Okay, so first of all, I actually don't think the son and daughter are literally supposed to embody the light and the dark. I think that's where a lot of people go wrong with trying to understand these episodes, and I will admit even I've been tripped up on that before, or for a while now, and it's taken several viewings to, I think, really understand what these episodes are trying to say about balance or about the light-dark dichotomy. And so anyway, no, I do not think that the son and the daughter are manifestations or something like avatars of the dark side and the light. They are not literal incarnations of them. They are something else entirely, something that is heavily influenced by the Force and by the light side and the dark side because of how strong they are with the Force. Because do keep in mind, it's made very clear multiple times in the episodes that the son is falling to and does eventually fall to the dark side, but he doesn't start out that way. He does not start as a dark sider, at least not according to the beliefs of both the daughter and the father, who again make mention of how he is falling to it and want to save him from it. Rather here it seems to be because of, as the daughter even says at one point, his nature, the son's nature of being selfish, while hers is selflessness, that he is sort of damned to fall to the dark side, especially now that the father is growing old and weak and can no longer control his son or his son's impulses or desires to be selfish. The father not being able to control the son to control selfishness is the whole problem here, and why he, the father, wants to or needs Anakin to maintain the balance between his children. It's about stopping the son, it's not about stopping the daughter. I mean, think about it. The son is all about wanting to escape Mortis, to escape this prison, and to get out into the galaxy in order to rule it, essentially. All the while the daughter is doing what exactly? Does she ever talk about wanting to leave Mortis to escape and to spread the light side of the Force? No, she doesn't. All she does or wants to do is help her father. She has compassion for her brother. She wants to save him. She's trying to help stop or rein him in to stop him from going to the dark side and getting out into the galaxy and plunging it into chaos. She is simply trying to maintain the balance, just like the Jedi do, or how they're supposed to do it. She has no ego, no desire to sort of get out there and propagate the light to the point where it totally eclipses the darkness or something, because you can't destroy the darkness anyway. It is always going to be there. It is always going to exist, or could come back or rise again. It is inside everybody. And so it's not about trying to balance the dark with the light. You're not trying to get equal parts of it or to find the right blend. You're trying to avoid the dark side, avoid giving it your strength so that it gets stronger altogether and then spreads like a cancer and hurts other people. You have to acknowledge its existence. Again, it is always going to be there inside of people. The potential is always there. And so you have to resist the urge to give into it, the temptation to be overly selfish. The best way to stop the dark side is not to ignore it or to try and destroy it, but to recognize the potential for it inside of you and to fall to it, for it to ultimately control you if you do fall, and to instead control it, to refuse to give into it essentially, which is what Yoda learns to do and does in Season 6 of the Clone Wars. Basically here, the daughter only wants to serve her father, to serve the balance in order to save her brother out of compassion and to, well, keep things balanced. Which is why, as I have argued many times before, you can have thousands upon thousands of Jedi in the galaxy and they do not cause any sort of imbalance because they exist to keep balance. That's what they're trying to do. It is the only thing they're really trying to do, or the primary thing they're trying to do, I should say. While on the other hand, just one Sith, one overly selfish Force user who doesn't care about balance or about anything but themselves, they can ultimately and will ultimately imbalance things. And thus, this is why, no, balance in Star Wars is not about equal parts dark to light. It's not about an equal number of Jedi and Sith. It is not about trying to find the perfect blend between the two, nor is it about a father keeping his dark side child and light side child in balance. It's about the father and daughter, out of compassion, trying to stop the son from falling to the dark side and causing imbalance. That's what these episodes are all about. And yes, I know many will be quick to mention that the father says to Anakin at one point, or in the first episode, that too much dark or light would be the undoing of life as you understand it. And perhaps that is true. Now, some would argue it isn't, that you can't have too much light side, but just for the sake of argument, let's say too much light side would be a huge problem, as too much dark side is, that it would be bad or disastrous for the galaxy. And well, you'd again have to keep in mind here that the daughter, who is selflessness by her very nature, isn't trying to bring that about. As I said before, she has no ego, no desire to leave Mortis and spread the light to make it so prominent across the galaxy that it becomes blinding or eliminates the dark side somehow. And I would argue no true lightsider, like the Jedi for example, would ever seek to bring so much light to the galaxy that, again, it would cause some sort of imbalance the other way by having too much of it. Nor would the light side itself, if it has some level of sentience at all, would it ever seek to have full control if it knew it would bring about disaster. I mean, if the light side were causing some sort of harm by there being too much of it, and considering the light side is, again, it's selflessness, it is compassion, you would think it would even try to stop itself, to rein itself back in and from causing that harm, which might have now some saying, aha, so you do need a certain amount of dark side to rein the light side back in. Evil does have a place and a purpose then. But no, that's not how that works. The light side wouldn't need evil to rein itself back in. It would simply seek to rein itself back in. Because if I were, for example, helping someone so much that I was in a roundabout way causing harm to them, and I discussed this in a video a few weeks back, but if I were helping someone so much that they were maybe becoming dependent or maybe entitled perhaps, they were becoming unable or unwilling to take care of themselves anymore, and they had the capability to take care of themselves, I wouldn't suddenly have to be evil to them or to hurt them to kind of break the cycle. I would seek another way to try and fix that problem. I'd probably simply scale back how much I was helping them and try to focus more on helping them help themselves. The whole, if you give a man a fish, he can eat for a day, but if you teach a man a fish, he can feed himself for a lifetime thing. Basically something more along the lines of tough love, not literally hurting them in some way to wake them up. And so I would argue what these episodes show nearly perfectly, what the Mortis arc encapsulates very, very well, is something George Lucas once said about how this all works, which I will play for you now.
The core of the Force. I mean, you got the dark side, the light side. One is selfless, one is selfish. And you want to keep them in balance. What happens when you go to the dark side is it goes out of balance, and then you get really selfish and you forget about everybody, and you ultimately lead yourself, because when you get selfish, you get stuff, or you want stuff. And when you want stuff and you get stuff, then you are afraid somebody's going to take it away from you, whether it's a person or a thing or a particular pleasure, experience. Once you become afraid that somebody's going to take it away from you, or you're going to lose it, then you start to become angry, especially if you're losing it. And that anger leads to hate. And hate leads to suffering. Mostly on the part of the person who's selfish.
And that last part there about how going to the dark side causes suffering is something we also see in these episodes, because the son suffers quite a bit. He loses his father and his sister. He's essentially responsible for their deaths. And he's quite distraught about both of them. Not to mention, yeah, the father and the daughter also end up suffering quite a bit, as does Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan. And the son also dies in the end. His father even has to give his own life to stop him, because that was the only way there could be balance again. The episodes are very much a warning about what happens when you become overly selfish and fall to the dark side. It again sure as hell doesn't say the best thing you need to try and do is to have equal parts of these two things, or that the dark side or evil is needed. It says, eventually, if you are selfish, things are going to go wrong. You can't balance out too much selfishness. I mean, just think about how silly that idea or argument is when you try to, shall we say, play it out or try to figure out how that would even look in the real world. That we need evil somehow. How crazy would it be to say that, and this goes along with what I was talking about a little bit ago, but how crazy would it be to say that since I was being nice to someone today, I did something to help them out, I now have to, in order to offset it or something, I have to be mean to someone and hurt them tomorrow in order to keep things balanced. And I know some will argue and have that if there was no evil in the world, we wouldn't know what good is. That if nothing bad ever happened, if everything was perfect, there would be no opportunity to do good. But just because there is no evil doesn't mean bad things won't and do happen, or that everything would suddenly be perfect. People will still have bad days, accidents will happen, and things like sicknesses and diseases will still come about. So will natural disasters, which we may think of these things as evil, but they really aren't evil. And so anyway, we will have plenty of opportunities to help others, even without evil being done in the world. And to put it very, very simply, what I would consider evil is to be an action or actions done by someone that either knowingly or intentionally cause harm, or that cause harm out of pure ignorance. But anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole any further, and I'll just sum up this video again by saying that what the Mortis arc shows is how balance works in Star Wars, and that is when you become too selfish, you fall to the dark side and cause all sorts of problems, and you cannot balance out evil. It will always turn into a cancer that festers and causes all sorts of problems for virtually everybody. And that when you serve the light, you're actually serving the balance. It's really all that simple. Well, that's all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think. Do you agree or disagree with me here? Do you interpret the Mortis arc differently, or what? Or you can always ask a question for a future lightning response video or a future thunderstorm video. All you got to do is start your comment off with "Hey Thor" and then ask away. But whatever you choose to do, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.